The ship came out of hyperspace with a soft hum. Princess Velara of the Sindari Empire stood at the window and watched the planet grow larger. The Galactic Academy sat on a green world with blue oceans and white clouds. It looked peaceful. It looked boring. Lara was not happy about being here. She was the third daughter of Emperor Kovacs, and her father had sent her to this academy to learn diplomacy. She did not want to learn diplomacy. She wanted to command warships and lead armies. But her older sisters had taken those roles, and she was left with the task of making friends with lesser species. The shuttle landed on a wide platform. Velara stepped out and looked around. Cadets from dozens of species walked across the grounds. She saw tall Norviks with their blue skin and 4 arms. She saw small Grellians with their large eyes and thin bodies. She saw Kethrani warriors with their scales and sharp teeth. And she saw humans. The humans were the least impressive species present. They were small and soft. They had no claws, no scales, no natural weapons of any kind. Their homeworld was a small planet on the edge of explored space. They'd only been part of the galactic community for 60 years. Most species considered them useful for simple tasks, but nothing more. Velara walked past a group of human cadets without giving them a second look. Her attendants followed behind her, carrying her bags and equipment. She was shown to her quarters in the diplomatic wing of the academy. The rooms were acceptable, but not as large as she deserved. On her first day of classes, Velara met her training group. There were 12 cadets from 8 different species. They would study together, train together, and learn to work with beings different from themselves. The instructor was a Norvik named Commander Hess. She was strict and spoke in short sentences. Commander Hess introduced each member of the group. When she reached the end, she pointed to a human male standing quietly in the corner. "This is Cadet Nathan Cole," she said. "He will serve as your translator and cultural liaison for human affairs." Velara looked at the human. He was average height for his species, with brown hair cut short and brown eyes that showed no emotion. He wore the plain gray uniform of a junior cadet. He stood with his hands behind his back and his feet together. He did not smile. He did not speak. A translator, Velara thought. They had given her group a translator, the lowest possible position in the academy. She felt insulted that this was the human assigned to her training group. The first weeks passed slowly. Velara attended lectures on galactic law, trade agreements, and conflict resolution. She practiced formal greetings from 50 different cultures. She learned which foods were poisonous to which species and which gestures were considered rude in various systems. Nathan Cole was present at most of these sessions. He sat in the back of the room and took notes on a small data pad. When someone needed a human custom explained, he would stand and provide a brief answer. His voice was calm and flat. He never used more words than necessary. Velara found herself watching him sometimes. There was something strange about the way he moved. He was always aware of everyone in the room. His eyes tracked movement, even when he appeared to be looking at his notes. When someone walked behind him, his body shifted slightly, keeping them at his peripheral vision. One evening, Velara was walking through the gardens when she saw Nathan sitting alone on a bench. He was staring up at the stars. His datapad sat beside him, forgotten. She stopped and watched him for a moment. In the dim light, with his guard down, he looked different. There was a weight on his shoulders that she had not noticed before. His eyes held a distant sadness that did not match his young face. He noticed her watching and immediately stood. His expression closed off, becoming the neutral mask she had grown used to seeing. "Princess," he said with a small bow. "Can I help you with something?" Velara walked closer. She asked him why he was sitting alone in the dark. Nathan said he liked to look at the stars. He said they looked different from every world he had visited. Velara was surprised. She asked how many worlds he had visited. Nathan paused before answering. He said he had seen a few. Then, he changed the subject, asking if she needed help preparing for tomorrow's examination. Valara let the matter drop. She told him she did not need help from a translator. She turned and walked away. Over the following days, Valara asked questions about Nathan Cole. She spoke with the Academy's records officer and requested his file. What she received was disappointingly thin. Born on Earth, educated at a standard Academy prep school. Moderate scores in all subjects. No family listed. No notable achievements. He was exactly what he appeared to be. An ordinary human filling an ordinary role. And yet Valara could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. The way he watched doorways. The way he positioned himself with walls at his back. The way his hands never shook, even during the most stressful simulations. She mentioned her suspicions to her attendant, a loyal Sindari named Korath. He told her she was seeing mysteries where none existed. Humans were a simple species. There was nothing special about them. Valara wanted to believe him. She had more important things to worry about than one quiet human cadet. 3 weeks into the semester, everything changed. The morning started like any other. Valara was eating breakfast in the dining hall when Commander Hess entered. Her blue skin had turned pale. Her 4 hands were shaking. She called for everyone's attention. Her voice cracked as she spoke. A distress signal had been received from Culver Mining Colony, she said. The colony was located in a system just 2 light years away. The signal contained only 4 words. Apex hunters are here. The dining hall went silent. Valara felt her blood turn cold. Every child in the galaxy knew about the Apex hunters. They were the monsters that parents warned their children about. They were the reason entire civilizations built bunkers deep, underground. The hunters had been traveling between the stars for 10,000 years. They collected species like trophies. They experimented on their captives in ways that drove survivors mad. No military force had ever defeated them in open combat. And now they were 2 light years away. Valara looked across the room. She found Nathan Cole standing by the far wall. While everyone else panicked, he simply listened. His expression had not changed. His body was perfectly still, but his eyes had changed. They were no longer empty. They were calculating. The next hours were chaos. Cadets ran through the hallways. Instructors shouted orders that no one followed. The Academy's communication systems overloaded as everyone tried to contact their families at the same time. Valara gathered her attendants and made her way to the command center. As a princess of the Sindari Empire, she had the authority to demand information. What she learned made her situation worse. The Culver mining colony had gone silent. The last transmission showed hunter ships descending on the settlement. 15,000 beings had lived there. Now, there was only static. Commander Hess was coordinating the evacuation. 3 transport ships were docked at the Academy. They can hold all the cadets and staff if they pack tightly. The nearest safe system was 4 hours away at maximum speed. Valara watched the commander work. The Norvik's 4 hands moved across multiple control panels at once. Her voice stayed calm, even as her assistants panicked around her. How long until the transports are ready? Valara asked. Commander Hess did not look up. She said 2 hours minimum. The ships needed fuel, and their navigation systems required updates. Valara felt fear growing in her chest. 2 hours was a long time. The hunters moved fast. Everyone knew that. She returned to the main hallway and found a window facing the sky. The stars looked peaceful. Somewhere out there, ships full of monsters were heading toward them. A voice spoke beside her. You should prepare. A small bag with only essential items. Valara turned. Nathan Cole stood a few meters away. His hands were in his pockets. His expression was as neutral as always. She asked him why he was giving her advice. Nathan said that if the evacuation became rushed, there would not be time to carry large bags. Better to have important things ready in something small that could be worn on the body. Velara studied his face. She asked him if he was not afraid. Nathan was quiet for a moment. Then he said that fear was useful. It made the body ready for action. But too much fear made people do stupid things. The key was to use the fear without letting it use you. These were strange words from a simple translator. Before Velara could ask more questions, an alarm began to sound. Red lights flashed throughout the academy. Commander Hess's voice came over the speakers. All cadets report to the central hall immediately. This is not a drill. Velara ran. Her long legs carried her through the corridors, faster than most other species could move. When she reached the central hall, hundreds of cadets were already there. More arrived every second. Commander Hess stood on a raised platform at the front of the room. Her face was grim. She told them that hunter ships had been detected entering the system. 3 vessels. They would reach the planet in less than 1 hour. The room erupted in screams and cries. Velara felt her heart pounding against her ribs. 1 hour. The transports needed 2 hours to be ready. They were not going to escape. Commander Hess raised her hands for silence. It took several minutes before the room was quiet enough for her to speak. She said that the Academy's shields would hold against orbital bombardment for several hours. They would continue preparing the transports. If the hunters landed ground forces, the security teams would fight to buy time. Everyone knew what that meant. The security teams would die. They were trained for peacekeeping, not warfare against the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Velara found herself looking for Nathan Cole. She spotted him near the back of the room. He was leaning against a wall with his arms crossed. His eyes moved constantly, studying the doors, the windows, the positions of everyone present. The hour passed too quickly. Velara spent it in the central hall with the other cadets. Some prayed to their gods. Some wept. Some sat in silence, their minds unable to process what was happening. When the hunter ships appeared in the sky, visible even through the clouds, the screaming began again. The 3 vessels were massive. Each one was shaped like a curved blade, black as empty space with red lights glowing along their hulls. They circled the Academy slowly, like predators studying their prey. Commander Hess ordered everyone to stay calm. The shields were holding. The transports were almost ready. Then the bombardment began. Columns of red light fell from the hunter ships. They struck the shields with tremendous force. The entire building shook. Cadets were thrown to the floor. Dust fell from the ceiling. The shields held. The red light washed over the invisible barrier and dispersed. But Velara could see the shield generators' readings on a nearby screen. Power levels were dropping with each hit. The bombardment continued for hours. The hunters were patient. They did not waste ammunition. They fired just often enough to keep the pressure constant. The shields grew weaker and weaker. 6 hours after the attack began, the shields failed. The final column of red light punched through and struck the west wing of the Academy. The explosion was deafening. Part of the building collapsed. Smoke and fire filled the air. Commander Hess ordered everyone to remain in the central hall. The transports were still not ready. Their only hope was to negotiate. Negotiate, Velara thought, with the Apex Hunters. The idea was insane. The hunters did not negotiate. They took what they wanted, but there was nothing else to do. The landing craft came down 20 minutes later. Velara watched through a window as the black vessels touched the ground outside the main entrance. Each craft could hold 50 warriors. The hunters had sent 3,150 of the deadliest creatures in the galaxy were now outside their door. Velara walked back to the central hall. The cadets had gathered in groups by species. Some held makeshift weapons. Some held each other. All of them were terrified. Commander Hess stood at the center of the room. She was preparing to open communications with the hunter commander. Her voice was steady, but Velara could see her hands shaking. Before the commander could speak, movement caught Velara's eye. Nathan Cole was walking toward the sealed doors. He moved with purpose, his steps calm and measured. He did not run. He did not hurry. He simply walked. Commander Hess saw him and shouted for him to stop. She ordered him back into formation. She threatened him with court-martial. Nathan did not stop. He did not even slow down. Velara pushed through the crowd. She grabbed his arm and demanded to know what he was doing. Did he want to die? Did he think he could reason with the hunters? Nathan looked at her. For the first time since she had known him, something changed in his eyes. The emptiness was gone. In its place was something ancient and terrible. Something that made her release his arm and step back. He told her that the hunters had made a mistake. They had come to a world with humans on it. Then he placed his hand on the door control. The great doors began to open. Velara screamed for him to stop. Others joined her, but it was too late. The doors opened wide. Beyond them stood the hunters. They were tall and thin, with gray skin stretched tight over angular bones. Their eyes were black and empty. Their mouths were filled with needle teeth. They carried weapons that glowed with cruel light. Nathan Cole walked out to meet them alone, and he was smiling. The hunters stopped moving when Nathan walked out to meet them. They had not expected this. Their black eyes studied the small human standing alone before them. He had no weapons. He wore no armor. He was smiling. The hunter commander stepped forward. He was larger than the others, with scars covering his gray face. He spoke in a voice like breaking glass. The commander asked what kind of fool offered himself so easily. He said the human would be the first specimen taken. Nathan did not answer. He continued walking forward. His steps were slow and steady. His smile did not fade. Inside the central hall, Velara pushed her way to the front of the crowd. She could see everything through the open doors. The hunters had formed a half circle around the entrance. 30 warriors in the first line. More behind them. Nathan stopped 10 meters from the hunter commander. He tilted his head slightly, like he was examining an interesting insect. Then he spoke. He said that he was going to give them one chance to leave. Just one. They could return to their ships and fly away. If they did this, he would let them live. The hunters were silent for a moment. Then they began to laugh. It was an awful sound, like bones grinding together. The commander said the human was insane. He raised his weapon and pointed it at Nathan's chest. Nathan moved. Velara had never seen anything like it. One moment he was standing still. The next moment he was gone. The hunter commander's weapon fired into empty air. Nathan was already behind him. The commander's head twisted at an impossible angle. There was a sharp crack. The body fell. The other hunters reacted instantly. They were the most dangerous predators in the known galaxy. Their reflexes had been honed over thousands of years of hunting lesser species. They were not fast enough. Nathan moved through them like water through rocks. He did not fight the way Velara had seen warriors fight. There were no heroic poses. No dramatic exchanges. He simply killed. Each movement was perfect. Each strike was fatal. He broke necks, crushed throats, and shattered joints with his bare hands. When a hunter swung a blade at him, he was already somewhere else. When they fired their weapons, he used their own bodies as shields. The battle lasted less than 2 minutes. When it ended, Nathan stood alone in a circle of dead hunters. 30 bodies lay broken around him. He was not even breathing hard. Inside the hall, no one moved. No one spoke. They had just watched something impossible. Nathan turned toward the second group of hunters. They had not moved from their landing craft. Their commander was dead. Their warriors were dead. And the human was looking at them. They ran. The hunters scrambled back into their craft. The engines fired before the doors were fully closed. The black vessel lifted into the air and retreated toward the orbiting ships. Nathan did not let them go. He ran toward the third landing craft. It was still powering up when he reached it. He climbed the hull with inhuman speed, finding handholds that should not have existed. He reached the cockpit and punched through the armored glass with his bare fist. Velara heard screaming. Then silence. The craft's engines died. The vessel sat still and quiet, its cockpit now empty of living hunters. The final landing craft was lifting off. Nathan dropped from the captured vessel and watched it rise. His expression showed no frustration. He seemed almost satisfied. He walked back toward the academy. His uniform was torn. His knuckles were bleeding. Hunter blood covered his face and hands. He stopped in front of the open doors and looked at the hundreds of beings staring at him. Commander Hess found her voice first. She asked him who he was. She demanded to know what he was. Nathan was quiet for a moment. Then he answered. He said his name was not really Nathan Cole. His real name was classified. He was Lieutenant Commander of the Terran Special Operations Division. His unit was called the Ghost Watch. They had been monitoring the academy since the semester began. Why? Commander Hess asked. Her voice was shaking. Nathan said they had received intelligence that the hunters were expanding their territory. Earth Command wanted observers in vulnerable locations. The academy was one of many. Velara stepped forward. She asked him about the other things she had seen. The speed, the strength, the way he had killed 30 of the deadliest warriors in the galaxy with his bare hands. Nathan looked at her. His eyes were tired now. The ancient fire she had seen before was fading. He told her that humans were not what the galaxy believed them to be. Earth was a death world. Everything on it wanted to kill everything else. Humans had survived by being the most adaptable, the most persistent, and the most dangerous predators on the planet. When humans had reached the stars and discovered they were stronger than every species they met, they had made a choice. They had hidden their true nature. They had allowed themselves to be underestimated. It was safer that way. For everyone. But Nathan continued, when their people were in danger, humans did not hide anymore. The orbiting hunter ships began moving, their weapons charged. They were going to destroy the academy from space. If they could not have their prey, no one would. Nathan looked up at the sky. His smile returned. He said that his ship should be arriving right about now. A flash of light appeared in the upper atmosphere. Then another. Then dozens more. A vessel dropped through the clouds. It was long and angular, painted in colors that seemed to shift and change. It moved with impossible speed, faster than any ship Velara had ever seen. The ship opened fire on the hunter vessels. The red beams that had shattered the Academy's shields bounced harmlessly off the newcomer's hull. The return fire was devastating. One hunter ship exploded in a ball of flame. The second lost its engines and began falling toward the planet. The third tried to run. It did not get far. The human ship chased it across the system in minutes. When it returned, it was dragging the captured hunter vessel behind it in a gravity net. Nathan walked back inside the academy. He sat down on a broken piece of wall and closed his eyes. Velara approached him slowly. She asked him the name of the ship that had saved them. Nathan opened one eye. He said it was called the Nightfall. It had a crew of 47 humans. They were all like him. All of them, he added, were very upset that the hunters had interrupted their shore leave. Velara did not know whether to laugh or cry. She asked what would happen now. Nathan closed his eye again. He said that was a complicated question. The galaxy had just learned something about humanity that they had worked very hard to keep secret. "Things," he said, "were about to get interesting." The nightfall landed on the academy grounds as the sun began to set. Velara watched from a window as the strange ship touched down on a patch of scorched earth. Its hull was covered in marks that might have been weapon impacts or decorations. It was impossible to tell. A ramp lowered from the belly of the ship. Humans walked out. They did not look like the cadets Velara had dismissed so easily. These humans moved like predators. Their eyes scanned the area constantly. Their hands never strayed far from the weapons on their belts. A woman led the group. She was tall for a human, with short red hair and a scar running down her left cheek. She wore a black uniform with no markings. When she spoke, her voice carried across the grounds without effort. She called out for Nathan. Nathan emerged from the ruined academy. He walked toward the woman with something that might have been relief on his face. When he reached her, she punched him in the shoulder hard enough to make him stagger. She told him he was an idiot. She said he should have waited for backup instead of taking on 30 hunters alone. Nathan rubbed his shoulder. He said there was not time to wait. The hunters were about to breach the doors. The woman shook her head. She turned to look at the crowd of cadets and instructors watching from the academy. Her eyes found Velara. She asked Nathan who the purple one was. Nathan said she was Princess Velara of the Sindari Empire. He said she had been asking questions about him for weeks. The woman laughed. It was a harsh sound, but not unfriendly. She said that Velara sounded smarter than the average royal. Velara walked toward them. She stopped a few meters away and studied the human woman. Up close, she could see more scars on her hands and neck. This was a person who had seen many battles. Velara asked who she was. The woman introduced herself as Commander Lisa Gray of the Nightfall. She said she was the ranking officer of the Ghost Watch in this sector. Velara asked what the Ghost Watch was. Lisa looked at Nathan. He shrugged. Lisa said the secret was already out. She explained that the Ghost Watch was humanity's first line of defense. They operated in places where human forces were not supposed to be. They gathered information. They prevented threats before they became problems. And when necessary, they eliminated enemies that threatened human interests. Velara asked how many of them there were. Lisa smiled. She said that information was classified, but she could say that there were enough of them to be everywhere they needed to be. The next few hours were busy. The Nightfall's crew helped repair the Academy's most critical systems. They treated the wounded. They cleared the bodies of the dead hunters. Velara found herself helping where she could. She carried supplies. She helped move injured cadets to the medical bay. She tried to make herself useful. As she worked, she listened. The humans talked freely among themselves. They joked and laughed despite everything that had happened. They called each other by nicknames that made no sense. They complained about the food on their ship and the lack of sleep. They seemed so normal, so ordinary, like the humans she had dismissed when she first arrived. But she had seen what they could do. She had watched Nathan kill 30 hunters with his bare hands. She had seen their ship destroy vessels that should have been unstoppable. How had the galaxy missed this? How had everyone underestimated humans so completely? Late in the evening, Velara found Nathan sitting on the steps outside the academy. He was alone, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. His hands were bandaged now, but traces of hunter blood still marked his face. She sat down beside him. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Velara asked him to explain. She wanted to understand. How could humans be so different from what everyone believed? Nathan was quiet for a moment. Then he began to talk. He told her about Earth. He told her about a world where the weather tried to kill you, where the oceans hid monsters, where the ground shook and fire fell from the sky. He told her about the creatures that had shared the planet with humans. Predators with teeth and claws. Insects with venom. plants that could poison with a touch. Humans had survived all of it. They had done more than survive. They had conquered. They had pushed every other species on their world to the edge of extinction. They had reshaped the planet to suit their needs, and they had done most of it before they even developed technology. Valara listened in growing disbelief. She had always assumed humans were weak because they had no natural weapons. No claws, no armor, no venom. Nathan said that was exactly what made humans dangerous. They had nothing, so they had learned to use everything. Rocks became weapons. Sticks became spears. Fire became a tool. When they ran out of things to use, they made new things. And when they encountered problems they could not solve with tools, they simply refused to give up. They kept fighting. They kept adapting. They kept surviving. Valara asked about his abilities. The speed. The strength. The way he had anticipated the hunter's every move. Nathan said that all humans could do what he did. It was just a matter of training and focus. The human body was capable of incredible things. Most people never push themselves hard enough to discover what they could really do. The Ghost Watch, he continued, trained humans to use their full potential. They learned to control their heart rate, their adrenaline, their perception of time. They pushed their bodies to limits that would kill members of other species. And the cost? Valara asked. There had to be a cost. Nathan looked at his bandaged hands. He said the cost was high. Most Ghost Watch operatives did not live to see old age. Their bodies burned out. Their minds broke under the strain. They gave everything they had, but they did it willingly, because they knew what happened when predators like the hunters went unchecked. They had seen the empty worlds, the mass graves, the recordings that survivors left behind. Someone had to stand against that. Humanity had decided that someone would be them. Valara sat in silence, trying to process everything she had learned. Her entire understanding of the galaxy had been turned upside down. She asked Nathan why humans had hidden all of this. Why pretend to be weak when they were so strong? Nathan looked up at the stars. He said that power without wisdom was just destruction. Humans had learned that lesson through thousands of years of war against themselves. They had nearly wiped out their own species, multiple times. When they reached the stars and discovered they were the most dangerous beings in the galaxy, they made a choice. They would hold back. They would be traitors and diplomats instead of conquerors. They would build relationships instead of empires. Because, Nathan said, the alternative was too horrible to consider. If humans used their full strength, if they truly waged war the way they were capable of, there would be nothing left. Valara understood. She thought of her own empire, built on conquest and dominance. She thought of the constant wars, the endless competition, the millions who died fighting over resources and territory. Humans could have crushed every other species in the galaxy. Instead, they had chosen to be friends. It was the most terrifying and beautiful thing she had ever heard. 3 days passed after the attack. The academy slowly returned to something like normal. Repair teams worked around the clock. Counselors helped traumatized cadets process what they had experienced. Messages flew between governments across the galaxy. The secret was out. Humanity was not what anyone had believed. Valara watched the reactions with growing fascination. Some species were afraid. They had spent decades treating humans as inferior, and now they worried about revenge. Some were angry. They felt deceived. They demanded explanations and apologies, but many were simply confused. They did not know how to process this new information. Humans had always been so quiet, so polite, so willing to take the lesser roles. How could they be the most dangerous species in known space? Valara understood their confusion. She had felt the same way. The Sindari Empire sent an official delegation to the academy. They wanted to meet with the humans and discuss the implications of what had happened. Velara was ordered to serve as a liaison. She found Nathan in the temporary command center the Nightfall crew had established. He was studying reports on a holographic display. He looked tired. There were dark circles under his eyes. She told him about the delegation. She said her father wanted answers. Nathan nodded. He said Earth Command was sending their own diplomats. They would arrive in 2 days. Until then, he was authorized to answer basic questions. Velara asked if he was really authorized, or if he was just going to answer anyway. Nathan smiled slightly. He said it was a little of both. They walked together through the ruined gardens. Most of the plants had been burned or crushed during the attack. A few still stood, reaching toward the sky like survivors. Velara asked what would happen now. The galaxy knew about humans. The careful deception of 60 years was over. What came next? Nathan said he did not know. Earth Command was debating that question right now. There were many opinions and few agreements. Some humans wanted to return to the shadows. They thought the galaxy would forget in time. Others wanted to step into the light. They were tired of pretending. They believed humanity could do more good by being open about their capabilities. And some, Nathan continued, wanted to withdraw entirely. They thought the galaxy was too dangerous, too hostile, too complicated. They wanted humans to build walls and let everyone else fight their own battles. Velara asked which path Nathan supported. He was quiet for a long time. They reached a bench that had somehow survived the destruction. He sat down and looked up at the clouds. He said he did not know anymore. He had spent his entire life protecting a secret. He had lied to everyone he met. He had watched friends die keeping the truth hidden. And now it was all out in the open. The lies were exposed. The secret was gone. He was not sure who he was supposed to be anymore. Velara sat beside him. She understood that feeling. She had spent her whole life being a princess, following rules, meeting expectations, playing a role that had been designed before she was born. She told Nathan that maybe this was an opportunity. For both of them, the old rules were gone. They could choose who they wanted to be. Nathan looked at her. Something in his eyes softened. He asked what she wanted to be. Velara thought about the question. She had always wanted to be a warrior, to lead armies and conquer enemies. But now she wondered if that was really her dream, or just what she had been taught to want. She said she wanted to understand. She wanted to learn about species she had dismissed. She wanted to see the galaxy through new eyes. She wanted to be more than what her title demanded. Nathan nodded slowly. He said, "That sounded like a good goal." They sat together in comfortable silence. Around them, the academy continued its slow recovery. Cadets walked past on their way to classes that had resumed despite the damage. Repair drones buzzed overhead. The captured hunter vessel sat in the landing field. Humans in protective suits were studying its systems, learning its secrets. The information they gathered would help protect future targets. Velara asked Nathan about the hunters. What would happen to them now that they had been defeated so completely? Nathan said the hunters had lost more than warriors. They had lost something more important. They had lost their reputation. For 10,000 years, the hunters had seemed unstoppable. Species had surrendered without fighting because they believed resistance was useless. That belief had been shattered when word spread that a single human had killed 30 hunters with his bare hands. When everyone saw that human ships could destroy hunter vessels, the fear would begin to fade. Other species would start to fight back. The hunters would face real resistance for the first time in their history. They were finished, Nathan said. They just did not know it yet. Velara felt a strange emotion rising in her chest. It took her a moment to identify it as hope. She asked Nathan what he was going to do now. Would he go back to being a shadow? Would he pretend to be someone else again? Nathan shook his head. He said he had been given new orders that morning. Earth Command wanted him to stay at the academy, not as a translator, as a liaison, a bridge between humanity and the other species. His job would be to help the galaxy understand humans, and to help humans understand the galaxy. Velara said that sounded difficult. Nathan laughed. It was the first time she had heard him truly laugh. The sound was warm and genuine. He said everything worth doing was difficult. That was how you knew it mattered. The Sindari delegation arrived the next day. Velara's father had sent her oldest sister, the one who commanded the Imperial fleet. She brought 12 warships and 300 soldiers. It was meant to be a show of strength, a reminder that the Sindari Empire was still powerful. Even if humans had surprised everyone, Velara watched the ships land from the Academy's observation deck. Nathan stood beside her. She asked if he was worried about her sister. The Imperial Princess was known for her temper and her pride. Nathan shrugged. He said he had learned that the most dangerous people were rarely the ones who tried to look dangerous. Velara smiled. She had learned that lesson 2. The negotiations that followed were complicated. There were arguments and accusations. There were threats and demands. But slowly, painfully, understanding began to grow. Humanity was not interested in conquest. They never had been. They wanted what everyone wanted: safety, prosperity, a future for their children. They had hidden their strength because they were afraid. Afraid of what they might become if they let themselves go. Afraid of a galaxy that would see them as monsters. They had chosen to be underestimated. And that choice had saved countless lives. Velara watched Nathan during the negotiations. He spoke calmly and clearly. He answered questions without becoming defensive. He apologized for the deception while explaining why it had been necessary. He was good at this, she realized. He was good at connecting with people, at making them feel heard. Perhaps that was the real power of humanity. Not their strength or their speed or their endurance, but their ability to understand others, to adapt, to find common ground. On the last day of negotiations, Velara found Nathan in the gardens again. The plants were beginning to recover. New growth was pushing through the scorched earth. She told him that her sister had agreed to a new treaty. The Sindari Empire would not treat humans as inferior anymore. They would be recognized as equals. As allies. Nathan smiled. He said that was a good start. Velara asked if it was enough. Nathan looked at the new growth around him. He said nothing was ever enough. The galaxy was vast and complicated. There would always be more work to do, more bridges to build, more understanding to achieve. But every step forward mattered. Every connection made a difference. Velara nodded. She understood. She held out her hand in the human gesture she had learned. Nathan looked at it for a moment. Then he took it. His grip was strong but gentle. The hand that had killed 30 hunters held hers like something precious. They stood together in the recovering garden, two beings from different worlds, looking up at the stars. The future was uncertain. The galaxy was changing. But for the first time in a long time, it felt like things might actually get better. And that was enough.